Jordan Karp is on, and I know that Jordan has worked with the Board of Elections, which is going to help us on this topic of Brian Miller and Chad McAvoy. But also, Jordan is working with Anthony Brindisi's campaign. Jordan Karp, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. So, clarify the, can you get into any of this Rosie O'Donnell thing?
I have no idea what you're talking about,
Yeah.
so probably not.
It's a Jim Zecca thing.
Shocker.
Shocker. Okay, I do want to ask you, based on your time on the Board of Elections and when it comes to campaign finance, you do know that Chad McAvoy is making a charge against Brian Miller. Can we pick your brain on any of that?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so explain what.
But basically, the allegation is
a
this.
loan.
Someone gave Brian Miller a donation and in-kind services totaling approximately $6,000. I believe altogether they're saying it's $17,000 that was loaned as far as money and in-kind services. Chad McAvoy saying it had to be paid up by the end of the 2016 cycle. That's when this dates back to. According to Chad McAvoy, this is still open. This has not been repaid. He's calling it a campaign finance violation.
What is your
that's
take
the
on
nuts and the bolts?
And I'm sure you saw the story. You might have saw the story in the have seen the story in the OD on Friday.
Right. So as far as campaign finance matters, that's all handled at the state level, never at the county level.
Yeah.
So I didn't deal with that much when I was Democratic commissioner at the Board of Elections, but I believe that loans become contributions at the end of that particular election cycle, I believe. Now, I'm not, it's been a while since I've been in front of the regulations about it, but I believe that's true. And there are non-family contribution limits and family contribution limits, mind you, based on the amount of voters in the district, and there's a formula there. So it's possible that loan probably turned into a contribution at the end of the cycle, and that contribution might have eclipsed the limits for that particular election for state assembly. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's my my 2-second pop dime store psychology assessment of the situation.
And I will say that I always was under the belief, and I know nothing about this, but it was always believed that a candidate could loan themselves, or someone could loan them, and it could take some years to have that paid back. But you're saying it would turn into a contribution after the election cycle, or you believe?
It's possible. That's possible. At the state level, that's possible. At the federal level, that's not true. So Federal Election Commission rules or loans can go on for years if the candidate chooses. And actually, at the federal level, I believe you can choose your own interest rate. So if you were to, Bill, if you were to run for Congress, you could loan yourself money, choose your own interest rate, and make money. Yeah,
I do. I was always under the belief that you could do that at the state level. But again, we're going to have to get somebody from the state to clarify it. But ultimately, was there anything else there?
Well, he's also saying that the individual and, in fact, the family that loaned him the money, Bill, you're aware of this, is Michael Waterman, who is a friend of. So it's not like some, Washington, D.C. lobbyist.
Oh, no, they work together at their engineering firm.
Right. And so he's saying because of that, this is what McAvoy is basically alleging, isn't it interesting that he made all these donations and in-kind services, and then turns out he's on his staff? So it's almost like he's using the job to repay the man who loaned him that. That's kind of the allegation he made.
Well, that's an ethics question, which is not, so that's an ethics question, not a campaign finance question.
Sure. Yep.
So I'm not so sure the regulations of the state campaign finance regulations would even handle that. That would be more of an ethics question.
Yeah. Ultimately, we'll get Brian on. I'm sure by now Brian has been to Albany with attorneys to determine whether he's made a violation or not, and we'll have Brian on to talk about it. I think that it's something we have to look into. Jordan, I have to ask you: have you ever seen anything like this year? I mean, we got people being kicked off the ballots. You've got challenges. You've got just the campaign signs being spray painted and torn down. I mean, what a year this has been.
Listen, emotions run high. What can I tell you? It's October. This is democracy is alive and well. What can I tell you?
One more I do want to ask you, and don't answer if you can't answer on behalf of the campaign. Jeff is bringing up the fact that Paul Ryan coming in, the president probably will come again. Anthony has chosen not to bring anyone in, although this guy from Shanana, Bowser, is in doing I believe it's
a talk on Social Security.
They're discussing the importance of Social Security and keeping that stable. But is there any plan to bring anybody up on Anthony's behalf?
Listen, I think at the end of the day, voters are going to determine, who they're going to vote for based on the names on the ballot and very little of anything else. I'll just say that, Paul Ryan, as Speaker of the House, wants to end Social Security and Medicare as we know it. So I think it's interesting the choices that that the other side's making, and I think that Anthony can stand on his own 2 feet in his own record. So, but we'll see what happens over the next 21 days.
A long 21 days. Jordan Karp, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay.